what's going on guys, Kid here and welcome back to a brand new video. For today I will show you the top 3 new meta PvP builds in New World. So for each and every single build I will explain what attributes, weapon masteries and even weapon and gear perks you want to have. Then what gems and specific gear you want to use to get out your stats as much damage as possible. Then as well I will show you the best gameplay of me using different weapons, so you would know which abilities you want to use first on your enemies and much more. So if this sounds interesting to you, then let's get right into it. So then moving over to the first build, which is a very strong PvP setup in the current meta. And for the weapons we want to use the blunderbuss and fire staff, and these are the attributes you want to have. So first things first, if you start from level 0 you want to get your intelligence to 200 and then start building your constitution, and around level 60 you should have 350 intelligence and 100 constitution. And lastly for your gear you want to go with the light category, which means using one medium chest piece and then the rest light equipment. So then taking a closer look at the first weapon, which is the blunderbuss, and these are the weapon masteries you want to have. So first of all you want to unlock the first ability called the Azot Shrapnel Blast and then get these 3 perks. Then now we take a closer look at the other side and unlock the second ability called the Splitting Grenade and then get these 2 perks. And then lastly unlock the last final ability called the Blast Shot and then get these 2 perks. And now from this moment and onwards you can spend your points in whatever order you want. Okay, and now let's move over to the second weapon, which is the Fire Staff, and these are the weapon masteries you want to have. So first things first, you want to unlock the first ability called the Pillar of Fire and then get this 1 perk. Then now let's go to the second ability called the Fireball and then get these 2 perks. And now let's move over to the right side and unlock this 1 perk, and then the last final ability called the Incinerate and then get these 5 perks, and that's it. Now again you can use your points in whatever way you like. Okay, so now let's go over to the gameplay where I will show you the best way to play this build. And for the first weapon we have the blunderbuss, and the first Q spell is called the Azot Shrapnel, which will fire a single grenade that will stick to the enemy and explode in 3-meter range and do massive amounts of damage. Then for the second skill we have the Splitting Grenade, which will shoot a grenade that can bounce up to 4 times, each time inflicting burn damage and then exploding in 3-meter range. And then lastly we have the Blast Shot, that will shoot a blast that will knock the enemies in front of you and give you and your allies 25% movement speed. And then for the second weapon we have the Fire Staff, and your Q spell is called the Pillar of Fire, which will shoot this burst of flames in 2-meter radius, but it will lock you in a casting animation for 2 seconds. Then the next ability is called the Fireball, which will shoot this fireball that will deal damage and burn the enemies in 3-meter range. And then lastly we have the Incinerate, that will create a fiery explosion around you, which will deal damage to the enemies and push them back. Okay, so now let's move over to the rotation, and no matter if you're farming mobs in PvE or doing PvP, the same principle and rules apply. So first of all you want to start the fight with the blunderbuss Blast Shot, then use the Splitting Grenade, and for this ability to detonate faster, remember to double tap the skill button. Then from now keep on using auto attacks, and to finish off weak enemies or mobs, use the Azot Shrapnel Blast. Or then if you are fighting against a boss, a strong player or bunch of mob groups, then now we switch to the Fire Staff and use the Fireball, then Pillar of Fire, then Incinerate, and then we finish off the enemy with auto attacks. And then lastly, don't forget to use the Blast Shot as soon as it comes off cooldown, because it applies the rend to the enemies. So now for my last and final conclusions for this build. This blunderbuss and fire staff weapon combination is the current highest DPS build in New World. And this build will not only give you very high damage, but as well you will be able to fight off bruiser enemies because of your blunderbuss abilities. So then last but not the least, for both weapons you want to use the Sapphire Gem. And then for all of your gear use 3 Malachite and 2 Onyx Gems. And then on your character you want to equip the Heart Rune of Detonate. And then on top of all this, to find out the best weapon and gear perks, watch this video, which is titled "Which weapon and gear perks are the best for your build?" You can just find the link in this video's description or just scroll through my channel. So in a quick summary, if you are looking for the most fun and the best PvP build in New World, then this is the one for you, so enjoy! So then moving over to the second weapon, which is one of the strongest PvP setups in the current meta. And for the weapons we want to use the greatsword and bow, and these are the attributes you want to have. So first things first, if you start from level 0 you want to get your dexterity to 150 and then start building your constitution, and around level 60 you should have 300 dexterity and 150 constitution. And then lastly for your gear you want to go with the light category, which means using one medium chest piece and then the rest light equipment. So then taking a closer look at the first weapon, which is the greatsword, and these are the weapon masteries you want to have. So first of all, you want to unlock both these two abilities called the crosscut and relentless rush, and then get these 4 perks. Then now let's move over to the other side and unlock the last third ability called the calamity counter, and then get these 3 perks, and that's it. Now from this moment you can unlock all the other perks in whatever order you like. Okay, and now let's move over to the second weapon, which is the bow, and these are the weapon masteries you want to have. So first things first, you want to unlock the first ability called the evade shot, and then get these 3 perks. Then now let's go over to the other side and unlock the last 2 abilities called the penetrating shot and explosive arrow, and then lastly get these 4 perks, and that's it. Now again, from this point and onwards, you can spend your points in whatever way you want. Okay, so now let's go over to the gameplay where I'll show you the best way to play this build. And for the first weapon, we have the greatsword, and your first Q ability is called the crosscut, which will perform 3 quick slash attacks, that with each attack will do more damage. Then the second skill is called the relentless rush, which will dash through your enemies while spinning and applying a 20% slow for the next 4 seconds. And then lastly we have the calamity counter, which will give you a block for 2 seconds, and depending on how many times the enemy continues to attack you, the more counter damage you will be able to do after the 2-second block expires. And then for the second weapon we have the bow, and your first Q spell is called the penetrating shot, which will shoot an arrow that can go through multiple enemies, dealing very high damage. Then the second skill is called the explosive shot, which will fire an arrow that will deal normal damage, but then on the enemy impact, the arrow will explode, dealing plus 130% more additional explosive damage to all targets in 2.5 meter range. And then lastly we have the evade shot, which after using will make our character leap back while using one last arrow, and this is great for dodging enemy attack while doing high damage. Okay, so then let's move over to the rotation. And first of all, you want to keep your distance between you and the enemy as much as possible, and from the range keep on using the normal bow light attacks. Then when the enemy gets closer and you know that you can land a decent shot, then now use the explosive arrow, then one light attack, and then right after use the penetrating shot. Then now switch to the greatsword and use the crosscut and relentless rush, depending on how close or how many enemies you are fighting. Then from this point the enemy will do damage to you, so now we want to counter him with the calamity counter, and then lastly we switch back to the bow and use the evade shot to leap back, and then we finish off the enemy from distance, and that's it. So now for my last and final conclusions for this build. This greatsword and bow weapon combination is the current highest damage PvP build in New World, and this build will not only give you very high damage, but as well you will be able to fight in melee to long range, and your speed is insane, so you can kite your enemies in PvP or to run around the monsters in PvE. And then last but not the least, for the greatsword and bow, you want to use the opal gem, and then for all of your gear use the diamond gems. And then lastly on your character you want to equip the heart rune of detonate. And then on top of all this, to find out the best weapon and gear perks, watch this video, which is titled which weapon and gear perks are the best for your build. You can find the link in this video description or just scroll through my channel, and in that guide I will specifically explain how perks work and which ones are the best for your specific gear and weapons and much more. So in a quick summary, if you're looking for the most fun and one of the best DPS PvP builds, then this is the one for you, so enjoy! So then moving over to the last build, and for the weapons we want to go with the musket and rapier. And these are the attributes you want to have. So basically this build is structured around doing a lot of damage from very far distance, but at the same time if you get attacked then you can run away or apply even more debuffs to the enemy. So then no matter from which level you start using this build, you first of all want to get your dexterity to 300 and then start putting points in intelligence. And then around level 60 you should have 300 dexterity and 150 intelligence. And as this is a full glass cannon build, you want to go with the light category. And the best gear setup is to have one medium chest piece and then the rest light armor. So then taking a closer look at the first weapon, which is the musket, and these are the weapon masteries you want to have. So first things first, you want to get this one perk and then unlock the first ability called the powder burn, and then get these 2 perks. Then afterwards get the second ability called the shooter stance, and then get these 2 perks as well. And now from here let's move over to the other side and unlock these 2 perks. And then lastly get the third ability called the sticky shot, and then get these 2 perks, and that's it. Now from this moment you can spend your points in whatever way you want. So then going over to the second weapon, which is the rapier, and these are the weapon masteries you want to have. So first of all you want to unlock both these 2 abilities called the evade and fleech, and then get these 4 perks. Then from here let's move over to the other side and unlock the last third ability called the Tando, and then get these 4 perks, and that's it. Now again you can use your points in whatever order you like. Okay, so now let's go over to the gameplay where I'll show you the best way to play this build and how to get out your abilities the highest damage possible. So then for the first weapon we have the musket, and the first Q ability is called the powder burn, which overloads your musket with gunpowder, dealing increased damage, and on the hit the enemy will get a burning effect, which will be doing damage over time. Then the second ability is called the shooter stance, which when you activate makes your character enter this crouching position, which deals damage and gives you the option to shoot 5 bullets with 70% reduced reloading time. And then lastly the third ability is called the sticky shot, which throws a short range shot that sticks to the target, and after 3 seconds it will explode, which will deal bunch of damage in 3-meter range. And then moving over to the second weapon, which is the rapier, and the first Q spell is called the evade, which by activating makes you invulnerable for a split second. Then the second ability is called the Tando, that slashes your enemy for 5-meter range, and the strike will apply a bleed effect on the enemy, dealing 85% weapon damage for the next 12 seconds. And this bleed can stack up to 3 times. And then lastly we have the fleech ability, which deals damage and provides a small but nice mobility / dash spell. So then moving over to the combat, and like I've mentioned at the start, this build is mainly meant for doing super high damage from very far distance. So most of the time while fighting in wars, open world, or any other PvP or PvE, you mainly want to stay very far away from the enemy and just keep on using the musket and your normal light attacks with the powder burn and the shooter stance abilities. But then if you are in a 1v1, or perhaps if you get attacked, then first of all throw the sticky shot and make your target explode. Then afterwards switch to the rapier and run from the enemy with the fleech ability, or on the other hand dash into him with the same ability. And then just keep on using the Tando and the evade ability as soon as they get off cooldown, and that's about it. So by using your musket, powder burn, and the sticky shot, you apply burning and damage effects to the enemy, and then when you switch to the rapier and use the Tando ability, you make the enemy target bleed even more. So then for my last and final conclusions for this build, this musket and rapier weapon combination is the highest damage build in the game, and with the abilities and perks we have selected we mainly focus on very high light attack damage. So then for our gem choice, for the musket you want to use the pristine ruby gem, then for your rapier get the aquamarine gem, and lastly for all of your gear, amulets, rings, and everything else use the Enix gems. And then on top of all this, to find out the best weapon and gear perks, watch this video, which is titled which weapon and gear perks are the best for your build. You can find this video's link in description or just scroll through my channel, and in that specific guide I will explain how perks work and which ones are the best for your gear and weapons and much more. So if you're looking for the highest damage build possible and right now the current meta weapons, then for sure try this one out and enjoy. And that's about it. So I really do appreciate everyone for watching guys, and I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any suggestions, feedback, or other good new world builds that you would like to see in the next video, then feel free to leave your comments in the comment section down below. And while you're doing that, please click like, subscribe, and enable that notification bell, so this way you could support the channel and you won't miss any more amazing content from me. With all this said, you have an amazing day and I will see you in my next video, so take it easy, peace.